welcome back to another video. I didn't really plan this, like I didn't change my outfit or anything, but yeah, I'm sorry that this is like the first thing you see for this video, but as you would have seen from the title and thumbnail, this is going to be the Naughty and Nice readathon reading vlog, I assume. Oh, look at my nails. My sister applied them for me because I suck at doing this. I feel like it's kind of wintry themed. Yeah, anyway, because we are going to Genting soon. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly come here and share like the bingo board so far. So this Naughty or Nice readathon is hosted by Bella from Throne of Pages on her Discord server. So last year she also did this, and I think I did a reading vlog on it as well. I'll link it up above for you. But yeah, this year is the second time that we're doing this. I'm participating in this as well. The bingo board looks like this currently without anything, and then the prompts that I've managed to clear so far. I managed to clear share your TBR on the Discord, make your favorite winter drink, which I made hot chocolate for, which I overlay the clip now. I also just got up of bed because I read a book cuddled up in bed, and I read for 1 hour straight. And I was thinking on how I can prove it to you, but I realized that I can show you my screen time. Okay, so if you can see, today, this is my e-reader. I spent 1 hour and 22 minutes reading. Yeah, that's what I did this morning before eventually rolling out of bed. But as for the books, I actually haven't started for this readathon's TBR yet because I'm currently trying to film another video as well, and it's basically the Goodreads 2022 nominees reading vlog. I don't really want to share like the books that I'm reading for that in this video, so if that video is out by the time this video goes out, I'll link it above. If not, stay tuned for that video, and hopefully I can get a start on this readathon's TBR soon because December I have a lot of books I have to finish. It's the end of year, cramming is very stressful. Like internally I'm just panicking all the time, but somehow I'll get through it. Actually, there's reading sprints happening right now on the Discord, which I can technically join and cross off another prompt, but I think I'm gonna be eating breakfast first, and then we shall see what happens after that. So yeah, keep you updated, and welcome to a new reading vlog. It's finally like a properly winter December theme one. The previous ones were kind of like normal videos, just that I put the intro and outro as Christmas themed. Hopefully that suffices, but yeah, this is a proper one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this readathon. I had a lot of fun last year, and I'm looking forward to all the prompts that I'm gonna do this year and all the books that I'm gonna read for this readathon. So yeah.
Several days later.
Hi, so it has been about a week since I updated because I went on a trip to Genting, Malaysia. I'll link my travel vlog up above if this goes up before then. I wanted to come on and update on the bingo board as well as a book that I finished. Okay, so I have posted a story about the readathon on my Instagram, which I think I'll overlay over here. I read By the Fireplace, as well as I crossed off the do the 4 to 5 prompts in the bingo board. Actually, I could have crossed it out in the previous bingo board, but I didn't realize it. I also crossed off read an underhyped book, and for that book, I read Love Like Farms by B.K. Borison. Before I talk about trigger warnings, let me tell you what this book is about. This one is about Stella, who has a Christmas farm called Love Like Farms. It was supposed to be like this super magical winter wonderland where everybody can come to celebrate Christmas and feel the Christmas spirit, but it's not exactly that because she has dead trees, her barn has been taken over by a family of raccoons, and so in an effort to save the Christmas tree farm that she's loved since she was a kid, because currently the farm is undergoing like quite a bit of debt, she enters a contest with Insta-famous influencer Evelyn St. James. With the added publicity and the $100,000 cash prize, she might just be able to save the farm from its financial woes. But there's a problem because she wanted to make the farm even more magical, so she lied on the application and said that she owns Love Like Farms with her boyfriend, only there is no boyfriend. So she recruits her best friend Luca Peters to help her with this, and with that a romance blooms in place. Trigger warnings for parental abandonment, parental infidelity, alcohol abuse, grief and loss depiction, death of a parent. Overall, I decided to give this 4.25 stars because I really enjoyed reading this, even though like I was hooked from the start. and there were a lot of quotes that I just highlighted because I felt like they were so cute. So it's not just about the romance, but it's also about the small town vibes, because this Christmas farm is located in a small town and everybody just looks out for one another. They try to help out and make the Christmas farm look more successful than it actually is. They are so quick to come and help out when Stella notices there's an intruder, things like that. And Luca is just, oh my gosh, he's so cute. The way that he treats Stella, the way that he loves Stella, the way that he respects her, and even when they're having a fight, he does it in the form of a slow dance. Like, what the heck? Like, that's so romantic, what the hell? But I didn't give it the full 5 because I felt that Stella was too blind to notice that Luca has loved her this whole time. Like, they've been friends for a decade. They haven't progressed anything further than that because Stella thinks that Luca is not interested in her and that if anything were to happen, it would have happened already. Apparently, she has seen him flirt with other girls in the town or something like that. But everybody else in town already knows that Luca loves Stella, and so she's the only one that is blind to this. So I couldn't really after a while, it just really felt like, oh my gosh, just open your eyes and you'll notice that he is right there. He won't be going anywhere. But okay, maybe because she has issues from her past about abandonment, and so she can't believe it. She's afraid to believe that Luca will be there for her. But it just feels very repetitive after a while. She just needs to realize it faster. It kind of felt like the Spanish Love Deception and Love on the Brain, in the fact that everybody else sees it but her, that kind of thing. Especially for Spanish Love Deception, Love on the Brain is more of it's a bit similar but not exactly the same. So it's kind of like miscommunication or lack of communication again. Yes, and okay, the whole influencer thing, I thought it would happen a lot sooner than that, because I thought it would happen while the influencer was here and they were trying to pretend with each other, but actually that wasn't the case. It happened more of the last 5% of the book, and the first 95% was more of them just trying to practice for it, and that's where the main romance kind of came about. But yeah, I thought it would have been nicer if there was this element of them actually pretending during the actual when the influencer is actually here. I guess that's all I have to say for that book. And yeah, so I will continue to update you with the board as I go along. The buddy read with a friend, I am actually buddy reading tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow with my friend, so I will cross it out when I finish reading it, but I won't update my thoughts on the book because that will be used in another video. And anyway, this isn't even on my TBR for this readathon, so yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. I'll continue with this readathon and let you know when I have any more updates. But this was really a very cute romance that is perfect for Christmas. I'm glad I read it during this time, even though the actual Christmas didn't happen in the book. The whole farm is a Christmas farm, so yes.
Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed and did my switch.
I'm back with more updates. Okay, so I just finished my second book of the readathon, and it is the 14th of December. 9 days left until the end of the readathon, which is 23rd of December. So a little bit rushed, but we shall try. The book that I just finished was Beach Read by Emily Henry. Let's start with trigger warnings first, as always. Trigger warnings for alcohol abuse, cancer, past in remission, car accident, death of a parent, past cheating, past child abuse, past child neglect, past cult, suicide cult, drink driving, emesis, past fire, grief, physical abuse, which happened in the past. What is Beach Read about? I need to slow down. I feel like many of you would have known or even read what Beach Read already, but for those of you who have not, Beach Read is Emily Henry's first romance novel. Oh, it is not the first, oops. The first adult romance, I guess, maybe? So Beach Read is essentially about two writers. January is a romance writer and Augustus, also known as Gus, is a literary writer. They are kind of like polar opposites, and for the next 3 months they are living in neighboring beach houses. And apparently both have writer's block. So actually both of them knew each other before, so they kind of like reconnected in this incident. Eventually they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative rut. So Augustus, also known as Gus, will spend the summer attempting to write something happy, which is January's domain, while January will pen the next great American novel. So they'll each take each other on trips to research and learn more about the other's genre. For example, how they gain inspiration, where they find their research, where they try to build up ideas and their scripts for their books, for example. So it's kind of like an enemies to lovers, which is why I read this book for the enemies to lovers prompt, right? Both of them eventually fall in love because it's a romance. In the end, I gave this 3.75 stars out of 5. I have seen people reviewing this book before and they have said that it's not just romance, and it's definitely not just romance. After finishing it for myself, it kind of felt like more contemporary with romance rather than romance itself, if you get what I mean, because both of them have their own like kind of tragic backstory or their past, and they both have some kind of trauma. The reason that January is there and the reason that Augustus is there is actually both like quite deep, and once you find out why, it's kind of like very serious. So it's not like light and fluffy like a typical romance novel that you read. I also found that there was quite a bit of angst, which I actually enjoyed. So back in the days when I used to read like Wattpad or fan fiction, I used to search like angst fluffy love stories, and it kind of reminded me of Beach Read actually. Not so much on the backstories part, but on how they are like, oh, does he really like me? That kind of feeling, you know, like I don't even know how to explain it properly, but it just reminds me of that. Not to say that Beach Read is like a fan fiction or something, like no, it's just that it gave me those kind of vibes which I enjoyed back when I used to read fanfiction. But I felt like while that contributed to the angst which I enjoyed, it felt a bit too much. So for example, it actually reminded me of Love Like Farms a bit, because I'm not sure if this is spoilers, so let me just put a spoiler warning. If you don't want to hear anything about the book, just skip ahead until you don't see the spoiler word there. So for example, Gus is like, nobody will ever love me, so not even January, so I keep trying to push you away, you won't want to see the real me, things like that. And then January is very insecure every single time. So because Gus has been divorced before, the ex-wife came back just briefly. She just showed up at an event, or like she just called Gus and they have to like settle their divorce, right? But then she'll be like, oh my gosh, he's not telling me anything, he's trying to kick me away, he doesn't want me anymore, things like that. But I guess it can be explained by their own backstories, which is why like their trauma is very evident in this story, right? But to me it felt a bit too much, which is why I ended up giving it 3.75 in the end. I normally in romance, like if I really love a romance story, I'll really like a certain character. So for example, in Love Like Farms, I really ended up liking Luca. Yeah, so I ended up really liking Luca, right? But in Beach Read, I don't really like a lot. I'm not really leaning in particular to either Gus or January, but if I had to choose, I would choose Gus. But to me, it really felt like Beach Read, both of the characters, right, were like Stella, but both of them are Stella. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I got from the story. But I did feel that Beach Read is very like well developed in terms of each character's backstory. So there was this story with January and her father, right? And there was this scene about letters, and oh my gosh, every time I read something about that, it just touches me so much, and I just really enjoyed that part. And I felt like I would have cried, but I ended up not crying, but it was still a touching scene. It doesn't explain away like what the father did, but it kind of makes him more human, I guess, because he's admitting to his mistakes. Back to the angst and the love part, right? Oh my god, the the scene in the tent. Oh my god, like I think it was chapter 22. Things started to really like whoa heat up in chapter 22. I also really liked the banter between January and Gus. I laughed like once, I think. I highlighted quite a few quotes in red, which means affection, and I really liked the quotes, so I might end up adding them to my Goodreads profile. For example, let me just read you one, okay? When we finally stood to go to bed that night, Gus didn't say goodnight, he said tomorrow, and that became our nightly ritual. Oh my gosh. One thing though, which made me like deduct a bit also, I read this story via the ebook and the audiobook. I don't know why, but the ending was different. I think the audiobook deleted a certain scene within a scene, and then it added something else at the end compared to the ebook, and it's just, I don't understand why there's such a change, and that I don't know which one is the final one also. But the part that the audiobook took out, I really enjoyed. So the part that the audiobook took out, right, in the front of the book, there's actually this whole thing about book dedications between Gus and January are talking about. So Gus was saying how January had a super good dedication. He thought it was one of the best dedications he had ever read in a book. And then in the epilogue, I think, he wrote in his book that was to be published, right, like from their whole like writing each other's genre thing. His dedication was, for January, I don't care how the story ends as long as I spend it with you. And like, oh my gosh, like after but in the audiobook, he asked January to marry her. He didn't even ask, he just said marry me in like the Taylor Swift You Belong With Me sketchbook style, because that was something that they did back and forth while they were writing their own books, and then they were writing in their own houses but facing each other, and then they communicated via that sketchbook thing. So it's like, I don't even know which one I prefer, but I just I don't know why there's such a change. I really enjoyed like both. I guess it's Easter eggs, I'm not even sure. The more I talk about it, why do I feel like the more I'll increase my rating? For now it's 3.75, but I will update again while I'm editing this whether or not I change my mind. Yeah, so for the bingo board, I crossed out read a book with enemies to lovers and listen to a Christmas playlist, because I found this lo-fi playlist on Spotify and I was just listening to it while reading a book that I'm buddy reading with my friend, to cross out the buddy read with a friend prompt. Really slow progress on the bingo board, but I'm still having fun. I actually just started a Christmas movie because that's one of the prompts, right? I started the Polar Express. I have never seen it before. I'm finding it a little bit creepy. Not creepy, but weird, because it's not 2D. Oh, it's in 3D, like 3D animated form, which just feels a little bit like I don't know how to feel about that. But as for the story, I haven't really gotten too far in yet, so I don't really have much of an opinion on it just yet. So I will update you again when I cross up more prompts. But yeah, that's where I am so far in this readathon. One last thing before I go, I thought it would be weird to read Beach Read in December because it feels like a summer read, right? But maybe because of how it's not super light and fluffy, I felt okay, and also because in Singapore there's no winter, so essentially it's not like super cold and stuff. It's a bit colder now because it's the rainy season and it's a little bit more windy, but yeah, I didn't feel as weird as I thought it was going to be, and that's where I'm going to leave you now. The angle has definitely changed. I'm in such a mess, but okay. I came back because I'm very done with romance at the moment because I read them all back to back, so Love Life Farms and Beach Read. The only two books that are not considered romance on my TBR for this readathon are The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer and Still Alice, this one over here. And so I do not know which one I'm going to pick, so I'm going to do like a mini try a chapter tag for these two books, and then we will decide from there, decide which one I'm going to bring out, because I'm heading out in a few minutes time. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, what I did not account for was the stark difference between the chapter lengths of the two books. So Still Alice, the first chapter, it just started off with a date, September 2003. That was page 3, and then the next chapter is on page 31, which says October 2003. So it's like 31 minus 3 is 28 pages, even though it's such a small little thing. Oh, I got this in a book haul, which I'll link above for you if you want to check it out, and it's kind of like a super small copy. So I decided to stop at page 8 because there was like a break. The scene changes, so I thought that was sufficient enough. So what happened in those 5 pages, also because The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer, the first chapter is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. So yeah. Anyway, so what I just read from this is that the main character Alice and John, they were in an apartment, right? So they are a married couple, and then she was lamenting on how their marriage has changed, their relationship has changed. So how they used to like hold hands and walk, because they work at the same place, so they'll share a commute and then they'll hold hands, they'll grab coffee together. But now they commute there separately, and sometimes John doesn't come back because he has to focus on his work and things like that. And so she was trying not to argue with him. So she briefly talked about her cognitive psychology work, like what she does. Like for example, she was marking a paper, then she was scheduling the conferences where she was invited to go be a guest speaker for, where the talks were regarding cognitive psychology and things like that. And I'm very much intrigued because I study psychology, so it's like a nice thing that I relate to in this book. I'm really much intrigued by this already, but we'll continue with The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I'll read like the first chapter and then I'll update on which book I will continue with. Okay, so I'm not sure if you saw my reaction because it was a time lapse, but in those short chapters I was so shocked. Okay, because I knew what this story was kind of about. It's kind of like a mystery thriller. No, actually it's not. It's like a fantasy, paranormal, romance, mystery. Okay, definitely not what I thought it was, but it felt like it. But basically, I feel I can tell you right since it's the first chapter. So Mara was with her best friend Rachel and Claire, who was a new addition to their friendship. They were playing with an Ouija board, which Claire had gifted to Rachel. Mara was feeling very hurt because it felt like Claire just barged in out of nowhere and was determined to steal her best friend Rachel away from her and try to make fun of her because Mara had a crush on Claire's brother Jude. So Rachel asked the Ouija board how she would die. I'm not sure if somebody influenced the letters, but in the end the word that was formed was Mara. I was so shocked because like doesn't mean that Mara will cause both of them to die. The first chapter actually ended off with 6 months later they were both dead, and so I'm super shocked by that. But still, Alice was very interesting also. But I also know that The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer is a series. I feel like this one will be a faster read, so I think I will read this first. That's what I will be doing, and we're starting with this first. Okay, I am here to update this because I finished 2 books, but only one is on my TBR, one is to cross off a prompt. Let me update the bingo board first. So I have joined multiple reading sprints. I feel like I screenshotted them, so I put them here. And so I crossed off both the remaining join a reading sprint prompts. I also finished my buddy read with my friend. Technically because I finished the book already, but my friend hasn't finished it yet. So I'm waiting for her to finish, then we'll discuss. But essentially that prompt is done, so I crossed that off as well, which got me my first bingo across. I watched a Christmas movie. I think I played it before. I watched The Polar Express. I also watched The Christmas Chronicles. The Polar Express hot chocolate scene though, oh my god. And The Christmas Chronicles, both of them were just like feel good Christmas movies. I crossed off one treat yourself self-care prompt because I went to the Suntec Book Fest and I treated myself to snacks and one book. I think I posted it as a short already, so you would have already seen it. The full reel with my haul is on my Bookstagram if you want to check it out. And then I read a book with a villain, so I finished The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I got my second bingo across. I also got one bingo diagonally across, so 3 bingos in one update, so that's a lot. Let's talk about The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. As always, trigger warnings first. Trigger warnings for ableism, animal death, bullying, casual racism, internalized misogyny, racism, slut-shaming, unhealthy relationships, attempted sexual assault. I really thought I was going to enjoy this, but from the first chapter, based on the previous clips, right? But I don't know, you can tell that it's a very old book in the sense that it was published many years earlier, like 10, 11 years earlier. I wasn't really blown away by it. In the end, I gave it 2 stars because it just didn't evoke any sort of emotions in me, except that I really want to be done with this book already. I didn't feel any sense of emotion towards any of the characters. I found the romance in this to be just very, very meh. This marked as fantasy. I guess it's her power. Her power is just like, okay lor, like you have that. The book ended on a cliffhanger, but I'm not going to continue with this series because I really am not interested in finding out what happens. That's really all I have to say about this. I feel like I'll forget about it very soon. It just feels like a book that was in its time and it hasn't been able to move on with the times or stand against time. And also because she is starting over in a new school, it reminds me of the book that I picked up next, which is XOXO by XCO, and I'm actually enjoying that a lot more compared to this one because the writing is really good, especially since it's YA, because sometimes YA books, the writing feels a bit young, but this one I didn't get that much from it, and it's about K-pop also, about the K-pop industry. There's also the high school element, so I'm really enjoying that much more. So I'll update more when I finish that book. That's all I really have to say about this one. I'm just glad that I'm done reading that, honestly, and on to the next few books. Oh my god. Hi, hello. I finished 2 books yesterday, but I'm only updating you today because I was concentrating on reading yesterday. So let me update you on the books that I've read, then I'll update you on the bingo prompts. So the first book that I finished was XOXO by XCO. Let's start with trigger warnings first. Trigger warnings for bullying, cancer, and death of a parent that happened in the past. Let me tell you what the plot of XOXO is about. We follow Jenny, who is a cello major. In the first chapter, she receives her results for something, I guess an exam. The critique was that it was played perfectly, but it lacks some kind of emotion. Upon hearing that, she feels kind of defeated. Her uncle, who runs a karaoke bar, advises her to live her life a little instead of constantly working towards just studying and practicing her cello all day. And then that's when she happens to meet this boy in the karaoke bar. I guess she's acting on her uncle's words, so the two of them end up having an unforgettable night together until he disappears without a word. 3 months later, Jenny and her mother travel to South Korea because her grandmother, her condition has worsened, and so her mother needs to be there to take care of her, as well as Jenny has to be there with the mum, right? So Jenny is now going to this elite arts academy for the period of time that she's gonna be in South Korea, and it happens to be this place where people who want to become idols, actors or actresses tend to go to that school. She enters that school and she finds out that the boy that she met in LA is studying there, and that boy is also part of a K-pop group that is super popular called XOXO. It's just about their high school encounters, their relationship, and it gives you insight as to how the industry works, I guess. In the end, I decided to give it 4 stars. I like how things progressed, and also I think I said that I really like the writing as well in a previous clip, but I don't think it's quite realistic or possible in the actual K-pop industry because of just how the nature of the industry is. Even if they're at like a younger age and stuff, I don't think what happened at the end is possible unless people hide it really well. That's all I'm gonna say for that book, but I really enjoyed it. Not as much as The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which I read for a previous video where I read the 2022 Goodreads nominees, so I'll link it up above for you. I did enjoy it nonetheless, and I think XCO is a really good writer because I don't think I've enjoyed a lot of YA books recently, but I've enjoyed both of her works. Definitely will read her works in future. Let me update you on the second book first because I kind of did the bingo board all together. The second book that I read was Still Alice by Lisa Genova. Look at my tabs. I find it super funny because these are like normal sized tabs, right? But they look so huge for this book because this book is tiny. It's like a mass market paperback or something. As always, let me start with trigger warnings first. Trigger warnings for ableism, Alzheimer's disorder, anxiety, anxiety, infertility that is mentioned, pregnancy, and mentioned suicide. I'm not sure if I've told you the plot of this, but we follow Alice Howland. She's 50 years old. She's a cognitive psychology professor at Harvard University and a world-renowned expert in linguistics. So she has a successful husband, 3 grown children, and she's just living her best life basically until she becomes increasingly disoriented and forgetful. She will forget things on her to-do list if they are too vague. For example, it may say Eric and she'll be like, Eric? What thing about Eric? Which Eric? Who is Eric? That kind of thing. There was once she completely forgot that she had to go for a conference for a talk, and so she just went home. And another time she likes to run, so she runs pretty often. She's always remembered how to go back home and things like that. But there was once she was in some square which I think is near her home, near her workplace, so she by right should be able to get home, but she couldn't figure out how to go home even though she knew where she was. She eventually gets diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease, and it's just the story of how she is coping with it, how her family is coping with it, the effects it has had on her and her career. I really didn't expect myself to enjoy this as much. Okay, I was kind of dreading reading this. This is also for the 12 books recommended by 12 friends on my Bookstagram, so somebody recommended this book to me and oh my god, I really enjoyed it. The green tabs are ones where I feel like the writing is really good or it's like really impactful, and the blue tabs are the progressions of her disease. In the end, I gave it 5 stars. Oh my god, we are at the second last week of December and I have another 5-star. Like, oh my gosh. I guess it's a good thing that I bought this copy from my Books Beyond Borders book haul, which I'll link up above. I wrote a lot of comments on my Notion page, 6 comments, not a lot but still substantial enough. Let's talk about it. So I said that it's very sad to watch her disease progress. For example, she was a Harvard professor, right? And she says that in their department it's kind of a thing to commit to memory all the references and things like that without needing to refer to something. And she always was the one with the imaginary ribbon for being the first person with the best memory and things like that. To see her go from this to this because of her disease is very, very sad. She also talked about how she would rather trade her Alzheimer's for cancer, because at least for cancer she has something to fight for and everybody will be very supportive, like, oh, you can do it, like this is a community, we're all here for you. But in comparison, for Alzheimer's, this disease disorder, people avoid you because there's no cure for it. You can only eat medicine to delay the progression. People are scared of looking at you because one day that may be them, you know. The disease is also hereditary, so it's also that discussion of how her kids may have a 50% chance of getting the disease, and you have to tell your children like, I have this disease and it affects you also. There's this discussion of how she wished that she could have had the choice to only select for embryos that do not have the disease. And the author has a PhD in neuroscience, which is very relevant to this book because Alice visits a neuroscientist to get diagnosed for her disorder. I also find it very sad to see the effects of this disease on her family. At the start, they're all like, oh, very sad, what can we do for you, you know, and then it's obvious that they love Alice like as a partner, as a mother. But then as it progresses, there'll be scenes where members of her family just discuss about her as if she's not there. She technically can hear what they're saying, but she just cannot respond. And it's kind of like, oh my god, like and then they start to treat her like somebody that cannot understand anything anymore, and it's like, oh my god, that's very sad. And it's like really sad, especially for the husband, because he really loves Alice. And there was a scene where, because as I mentioned, Alice really loves running, but because of her disease she cannot run alone anymore. Like, she can forget where she is, she can forget how to go home. Sometimes it distorts her spatial awareness, and so she might fall down easily and things like that, so she cannot go alone. So the husband, on recommendation by the doctor recommended that she continue running, but the husband picked it up with her because exercise is good. And the husband, even though he hates running, diligently runs with her at the start. There was like a quote that I highlighted in the library book, but I unfortunately already returned it. So the gist of it was, he took to running the same attitude or energy he would towards loading the laundry or paying the bills, but he committed to it. You can see the love that he has for the wife. But even though he loves loves her. He can't stand watching her lose herself. There was this scene where towards the end, even though both of them mutually agreed to hang on a bit more until the end of that year so that both of them could take a sabbatical and spend time together, he didn't want to take a sabbatical anymore. Instead, he said that he was offered a position at this place in New York as chairman of something, and he wanted to take on the position. He argued that it would be better for the wife, Alice, to be there. Even though he's working, he would still be able to spend time with her, even though we all know that's a lie, because even without moving to New York for the new position, he's already spending lesser and lesser time with her. The children have to come in and help out because he's often at work. Eventually, like, the running session stopped also. It's like very understandable, because as a caretaker, you watch your loved one just fade away from this amazing person that you fell in love with. So it's like a form of escapism to go to work. But it really felt like he was acting for himself and not for Alice, because moving to a new location is definitely going to be worse for her condition, because where they are at, the children can come and take care of her. People around her neighborhood can help her as well, but that's what happens, I guess. That's the harsh reality. There's one particular green quote is where Alice confronted him about the sabbatical. How can you even consider spending the time you have left squirreled away in your fucking lap? I would never do this to you. I would never ask you to. You wouldn't have to. I don't think I can do it, Alice. I'm sorry. I just don't think I can take being home for a whole year, just sitting and watching what this disease is stealing from you. I can't take watching you not knowing how to get dressed and not knowing how to work the television. If I'm in lab, I don't have to watch you sticking post-it notes on all the cabinets and doors. I can't just stay home and watch you get worse. It kills me. No, John, it's killing me, not you. I'm getting worse. Whether you're home looking at me or hiding in your lab, you're losing me, I'm losing me. But if you don't take next year off with me, well, then we lost you first. I have Alzheimer's. What's your fucking excuse? Moving on to the next point. She can't read books or watch movies without feeling lost anymore as her disease progresses, and that is so sad. I cannot imagine, because okay, she is a Harvard professor who reads thesis, who reads research notes, who writes books, things like that, you know, and now it has progressed to the point where she can't even read books or watch movies without feeling lost. Oh my god, like, everybody loves watching stuff, right? I really love reading as well. Wow, the thought of not being able to read anymore because of this disease is really super sad. To know that this might be a reality, oh my gosh, I really cannot. Time is limited, guys. This is really sad. It brings a point of how she was at a very good place in her career, and to have that taken away from her because of this disease that took away everything so quickly is so scary and so sad. And at the end, her medicine wasn't helpful. Oh my god. So basically, she took a drug that was recommended by the doctor, but it was like on a trial. So in the end, the trial turned out to be a fail, and so it was super sad. I read the whole thing yesterday, so yeah, I decided to give it 5 stars. To update the bingo board, XOXO, I completed a book I said I was going to read in 2022, which got me my 4th bingo. After that, I also shared a picture of my holiday decor. You can see over here, this one. I only have one. I also completed Still Alice, which was for the prompt, read a book with an ugly cover. I would say this is a relatively nice cover, but I was thinking more of the one with the white cover with just a butterfly. Although the butterfly had a meaning to it, I still find it not as pretty or beautiful, which got me my 5th bingo. So I have 4 prompts left, and I actually completed kind of 3 of them already, but I have yet to update in the server, and I have yet to finish the last book, so I'm gonna wait until the last update and then update everything at once. I am determined to finish this, preferably by today. So yeah, let's go.
That was a long, long time ago.
Okay, hi, I am here to close out this video, which has gone on for way too long already. So I just finished my last book for this readathon, which was Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry. As always, we will start with trigger warnings first. Trigger warnings for bullying, racism, slut-shaming, blackmailing, cyberbullying, grandparent with Alzheimer's disease, and underage drinking. So this book is about Quinn, who writes lists of everything in her journal, which is red in color, which is what she is holding in the book cover. So examples of her list will be like the days that she's ugly cried, things that she would never admit out loud, all the boys she would like to kiss, things like that. She does so because she feels like by writing her fears on paper, she never has to face them in real life until her journal goes missing. It goes missing because she and her group project partner Carter accidentally switched their journals. They were supposed to swap it back, but he ended up losing her journal, and an anonymous account posts one of her lists on Instagram for the whole school to see, so they also tagged everybody and blackmails her into facing 7 of her greatest fears, which she has written in a list, like it's like a list that she has to do before she graduates or something like that, or else her entire journal will go public, and it includes a lot of like personal things, like something that she did in the past which greatly affected a classmate of hers. She teams up with Carter because he was the one who lost her journal, right, to track down the blackmailer, but also to complete the lists before the deadline the blackmailer gives is up, and along the way they find romance. I decided to give this 3.75 stars in the end because while the list thing, I guess it's like a cute concept, but it's so funny to me that like a blackmailer will be like, okay, you have to do all these things on your list as like the thing that they are blackmailing them to do. Okay, kind of childish in my opinion, but sure. And I mean, the people who did it did turn out to be super childish, but it still felt a little bit weird to me. It's like this blackmailer is getting Quinn to live her life, face her fears. It's kind of like well-intentioned, right? But actually it's supposed to be bad intention. And I found the whole commentary via the characters about their race and what things white people do that are racist to them. I found it really interesting because I also didn't really know a lot of the things until I read this book. And it's also about how like Quinn herself, she might be scared to be around other black people because she hasn't been in an environment where she has felt safe, probably because of upbringing. Like she lives in a neighborhood which is predominantly white before Carter and more characters along the way. She hasn't had any black friends until then, and her father was also like a bit racist to Carter, so it's like all these issues within the family as well. So I found that to be really substantial and really fleshed out in a YA book. I quite enjoyed it. 3.75 stars is a good rating. And with that, I have finished my TBR for the readathon. Let's talk about the bingo board prompts. Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry and XOXO are also books that I have to read for the A to Z challenge that I'm doing on my Bookstagram. So yeah, that's a work in progress as well. I crossed out read a book with green on the cover for Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry, which got me 2 bingos at once. I also baked holiday treats today. I baked a mug cake and it turned out to be much better than the last time I did it for, I think, a readathon on Throne of Pages server as well. Treat yourself. I'm gonna use that for the fact that I tried to read on my bed today and I ended up napping for 2 hours. I mean, I can use that as self-care, right? Self-care is taking care of yourself. And even if I don't use that, I gave myself yesterday and today to just read and do absolutely nothing, which is kind of self-care also. So yeah, that will give me 1 more bingo. Bake some holiday treats gave me 1 bingo also. And last but not least, I joined a movie night on the server last night at 2 AM. So I have a screenshot, but it's like a very shady screenshot. We watched that movie together. I can't really say much about it because your girl was trying not to fall asleep and I think I crashed eventually, so I honestly can't remember much about the movie, but I joined for a good while. So with that, I've completed everything on this bingo board. I really wasn't expecting myself to complete everything, but I guess my competitiveness shone. Since this is a Christmassy video, let's talk about some Christmas series of films that I've watched recently before I end the video. I watched Single All the Way, which is a movie about friends to lovers, and it's just super cute. I really wasn't expecting it to be so cute and so good. I gave The Polar Express 3.75. I gave Single All the Way 4 stars. I also watched The Christmas Chronicles and I thought that was quite cute, quite wholesome. I gave it 3.75 stars. And then I watched Dash and Lily. Oh my god, so cute. I have never read the books and I've been meaning to watch this series since last year. I think the last Naughty or Nice readathon, but I didn't have time, and this year I finally had time and it's so cute. Like, I gave it 4 stars, but I'm thinking that it might be a 4.25. I'm gonna up it to 4.25 because it's so cute. The premise is super interesting. It's about how Lily came up with a book of theirs and she put it in a bookstore. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. So Dash found the notebook. He completed the different scavenger hunt prompts to talk to Lily, and in the end they converse through the notebook until they eventually meet and stuff. And it's really super cute. It's really worth watching. I really highly recommend this. I think it's my favorite out of everything. And I also watched Rise of the Guardians, which is a movie that I've never watched, and it came out in 2012, so it's like 10 years ago already. I liked Rise of the Guardians more. I gave it 4.5 stars. Oh my god, it's really so good. All the different Guardians are so wow. And the fact that Chris Pine voiced Jack Frost and Hugh Jackman voiced Bunny is so funny. Oh my god. Oh, that rhymed. I couldn't really predict where the plot was going. And yeah, okay, now I'm thinking maybe I should give Dash and Lily 4.5 also. Okay, I'm gonna give Dash and Lily 4.5. I think I enjoyed both of them equally. They are the two that I would recommend the most out of everything that I've watched. And that brings me to the end of this super long video. I hope you are having a great day or a great week whenever or wherever you're watching, and remember to hydrate yourselves. If you enjoyed watching this video and you are still here, please leave a Christmas tree emoji because it's Christmas. It's gonna be past Christmas, maybe even New Year's by the time this video goes up, but I hope you had a great Christmas and I hope you had a very good New Year celebration. If you liked watching this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel to see more of such content. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next year, 2023. I have no idea when this video is gonna go up, but yeah.